More than 1,000 women from all walks of life across the African continent are attending the African Women in Dialogue conference in Johannesburg. The conference seeks to find long-term solutions to challenges women face.
The week-long conference, now in its second year, is hosted by the Zanele Trust. Today's session included a panel discussion on women's agency and how female voices can enable change.
Happy to be here. My name is Fadumo Daib, and I'm actually very excited to have this discussion with you. Thank you.
Welcome. Discussion?
Yeah. I'm bombastic, Mr. Lava. I'm really honored to be here because 20 years or 12 years ago, I wouldn't really have imagined being in a space like this. Because 12 years ago, I sat in a room like this and women walked out simply because there was a lesbian in their admins. So for me to be welcomed, it's really a pleasure. So I'm really glad to be here and share with you.
Honorable Cecilia, can we hear from you?
Hamjambo mabinti ya Afrika. Hamjambo tena. Jambo tena. Tu pamoja. Good afternoon. I'm happy to be here before you. We shall hear more as we proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Cecilia. Ms. Sisi?
Maskata Kanaka. Good afternoon, ladies. What a privilege and absolute joy for me to be amongst you this afternoon and looking forward to our panel discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sisi. So I'm going to start off with you. Your story is quite interesting. I mean, I read your profile and I was blown away. I've watched you a couple of times talk, and there's this calmness and strength that I notice when you talk. And having to help so many young children, I think on your profile I saw over 250,000. How do you stay grounded? How do you stay true to the reason why you started this?
Thank you so much. I think for me it's been a journey, but in a nutshell, it's understanding that a human being is precious. And when we put value to life, irrespective of color, religion, beliefs, values, nationality, all the things that are very superficial that separate us, what I've learned is just the importance of the human being, and that it's important to do everything that I can as a woman, as a citizen, as a mother, as an African, to preserve every single life. And that is what drives me and makes me want to impact every single human being that I come into contact with.
Thank you so much. That's so powerful. So I'm going to connect that question back to you, Ms. Fadumo. Again, you also are a legend in some places, right? Because of what you have done to say, yes, Somali women can run for office. And you went for the highest office in the land. Why?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. I want to first start, before pivoting to this question, I want to start by actually acknowledging women in this room and to say that I'm actually very proud to be part of this nation, and women are a nation. We are a nation across borders, across languages, across religions, across so many things. And this is something I think we sometimes don't acknowledge, the power that we have and the fact that we belong together. Wherever we are one. And coming to this question of why I wanted to run, I wanted to actually show the world, not just Africa, not Somalia, that the world is ready for female leadership. And it has been ready for many, many centuries. And I wanted to acknowledge the fact that women actually lead informally. All I wanted to do was to formalize that leadership. Not to negotiate our existence, not to beg, not to ask, not to loiter around the leadership table, but to actually pull up a chair and say, you know what? I am here, and I have every right to lead. And this is precisely why I ran. Because of men and the civil war inside Somalia, I had been waiting for more than 27 years to be saved by a man who would be a great leader. And I realized one day that I was actually that leader that I was looking for. And that I should step forward despite all the challenges and the risks. It is a moral obligation for me to step forward and to take that leadership. And this is why I ran in Somalia. And I hope by doing that, I have inspired women all over the world to step forward and do the same.
Thank you so much. Honorable Cecilia, I want to come to you.
Yes.
I tried to find something about you, but there wasn't so much. But the little I could find showed me that you are such a pioneer in Kenya. I mean, you're wearing your traditional outfit now, and that is what I want to go to straight away. As a Maasai woman, what does it feel like to speak as yourself and also as a representative?
Thank you so much, madam. Let me start by saying congratulations to the people, to the ladies who made sure that this conference was to come into existence. Thank you also for attendance, and thank you for all the efforts that you have employed to make it a success. Like she said, I come from Kenya, and I come from a community which is not so much great, but it's a minority. I come from the Maasai, and Maasai live in a county called Narok, and that's where I hail. I was born up in the normal family life and reared. I perform all the duties that a child belonging to the Maasai community is supposed to. In our community, we are pastoralists, and we are bound to move from one place to another for pasture. We move with the animals, we move with everything that we have, and that's our life, nomadism. As I grew up in the village, I got a chance, I was privileged to enroll in a primary school. And bear in mind that when the animal moves to another place, I have to shift, or I suffer by walking long distance. I did, and in that, I learned that there is power. And that power is able to change attitude towards women, attitude towards education, and that is it. Through my education, I am able to show clearly that what a man can do better, a woman can do 10 times better than a man. I have also learned that through my education, I can liberate my sisters from the bondage of being oppressed by culture and strong beliefs that are against women. I had to show that being educated is to open, it's an eye opener and also a door opener to greater visions in life. Through education, I'm able to touch lives of young girls in the village by mentoring them, by showing that they are able and they are not objects to be used for destruction. You remember, as you have read in history, that the Maasai can even marry a daughter of 12 to 14 years. Is that ready? Is that a woman, really? No, she's a child. We also fight against that. There is also a monster called FGM. We also fight against it, and we also fight against early pregnancy or teenage pregnancy and school dropout rates. I understand that if a girl is empowered through education, through the same education, a girl can liberate many more girls in the community, and the same girl is able to bring change within a community by sensitizing parents to shun out the bad behavior or the bad beliefs about how a woman should be treated. Just because of time, let me say there is strength in a woman's voice, and it's born to create changes in the community. Through education, we can make. And in the ministry in which I work under I'm in education, youth and gender. And I like this so much because I have to touch lives. I am grateful to my God for enabling me to create an impact, to make a change in my community. And it's my prayer that as we continue, I will do more. And I will get more to support me.
Thank you so much.
I'm not alone. I'm not the little Maasai girl that people may think. When people see Maasai, they think they are primitive. God has come unto their rescue, and they are now people that can be emulated.
Thank you.
I have also done my education, and as an example, I have a master's degree, and I'm glad of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Cecilia. I'll come back to you with more questions.
Yes, madam.
Now I'll come to Mr. Lover, Bombastic. I watched your TEDx video. I think it was 2014. It was titled Risk and Resilience. And I loved the title, but among the many things that you said, there was something that caught my attention. And you spoke about your grandfather and how he was respected. And I'm quite interested in that because just before coming here, I had that conversation with someone and I said, I don't understand why all of a sudden we seem to be shocked by the fact that we have people that are not straight in our communities. So I want you to speak to that link and why you think it is important to have these conversations now as a pushback.
Yeah, thank you. I happen to be a princess, so you should all bow, in front of me. Yes, the first known homosexual on the African continent happened to be my great-great-grandfather in 1886. And this is when, before even we got the colonialists on the African continent, at least in Uganda, before even we got the missionaries. So when the missionaries came, somehow they went to the palace, and then they found that the king had so many pages who were also his sexual partners, on top of having other, married to women. So he's known and he's celebrated, and he was never actually persecuted in my community. But when we got the missionaries, they came with the Bible, and then they introduced Christianity, which we did not have in Uganda by then, because we had our traditional beliefs that were respected. But when they came Christianity condemned homosexuality. And then they also came with what you may call, I'm trying to translate it from my language, sorry. So homosexuality was never.
There are those people that would understand you in your language, so you can.
Oh, well, we are only about 10.
Yes.
We are only about 10 in the room that would understand. But homosexuality was never persecuted or criminalized in Uganda. Even when you go into our history, we have the languages. Like homosexuality in my own mother tongue, it's called Abasias. It was there even before we got Christianity or even before we got the missionaries. But when they came, they criminalized it and also they Christianized it. And because in African tradition, all of you can attest to this, that we are never really open about talking about sex in general, not just homosexuality, but just sex. So when we came out and decided that we need to talk about homosexuality, because these are your children, these are your fathers, these are your sisters, and they're living amongst you. These are your doctors, these are your lawyers. So it's time to talk about it. And so the government felt that we are now bringing something that is foreign. But this is not foreign. This has existed time immemorial. Homosexuality has been there just because in African tradition, African society, sexuality in general was never discussed. So when our generation decide to say that, let's talk about this, because we do exist. Because before I'm a lesbian, I'm a woman. And before I'm a woman, I'm a human being. You know? So whether you like it or not, I'm part and parcel of this community. I may not have the big bumps. I may not be the traditional African woman that you expect, but does not mean that I'm not a woman. I may love differently, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm still a human being, because at the end of the day, it's the humanity that brings all of us together, the Ubuntu that brings even all of us into this room today together. It's the Ubuntu, because I am who I am because of who you are.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I'll come back to you, Ms. Falimo, and I want to start off with this quote of yours that I saw from an interview. You said, "I believe I am the leader the country has been looking for." And I want to believe a lot of women went on that journey with you from 2014 to 2016 when you actually left the race. Can you tell us really, because we've read so much, but I mean, I'm honored and privileged to have you next to me now. So I want to ask that question for the other women in the room. You cited corruption as the reason for dropping out. But even in a previous interview, you were aware of that corruption before going into the race. So why leave when you were sure and you made us believe that you were the leader we were waiting for?
Thank you. Thank you very much. One of the reasons I ran, as I said, was to really contest the notion of male leadership. When we talk about leadership on the continent, it's often a 50-year-old man with gray hair and a pot belly. That's what we associate leadership with. And it was to break that, to say, no, leadership is not that. It can be many other things. Coming back also to my society and my culture, which is patriarchal, I was facing so many challenges. One was corruption, which I knew. In Somalia, when you look at the Transparency International report, the corruption index, we are always the most corrupt in the world. But what really stopped me was something that we call the 4.5 clan-based power sharing system. And the 4.5 clan-based power sharing system actually completely excludes women. Women are not really seen as women, as human beings who have every right to be visible in that society. My contestation with the 4.5 clan-based system was that I do not believe in clanism. I don't believe that there are 4 major clans, and then the 0.5s, who are the vulnerable and marginalized communities, are seen as subhumans. I do not believe in that. And if you look at my manifesto, one of the things that I really fought hard was this clan-based system, which, by the way, is nowhere in the world except in Somalia. and which is being kept on life support by the international community. They are funding this system which completely oppresses and silences women, and that marginalizes the youth. And that actually believes that vulnerable and marginalized clans, or the so-called clans that are looked down upon, are seen as being subhumans. This was something I really had a problem with. Would I want to run in a system that oppresses people like me, that believes certain people are subhuman? By running in there and actually giving money and formalizing my candidacy, would I legitimize a system that should actually not exist in this day and age? So that was really one of the reasons why I stepped aside. And of course, anti-corruption was a very strong mandate. I would not want to give money, although people said, look, for you to get into office, you will have to do unethical things. I said, if I must decide and choose, corruption will not be one of those things, because I am young, I have a long journey, and I know one day I will be the president in Somalia. I don't have to do it unethical.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to come straight to you and link this, Ms. Sisi. Like, she's talking about culture and change. And I know from your profile that you have worked hand in hand for years with your husband to bring change, and especially to out-of-school children. We believe that in Africa, a lot of women get put down and their voice is not heard because we live in a patriarchal system, not just in Somalia, across Africa, right? And it seems to have been a culture that has been allowed. And we find a lot of women even defending that culture. But we know that, for all the frameworks of what we're trying to build, there's a he for she, right? And I see that synergy with you and your husband. What do you think from your journey we can take away as a way to get a he for she on board and actually create that change that we want to?
Thank you very much. There are a couple of things that have really helped me along the way. Number one, it's very important as a woman to find your own personal voice, to personally build confidence in yourself. It doesn't matter. I know of very few men who wake up in the morning and say, I want my wife to be a success. I would like my wife to be confident. I would like her to be powerful. Those are not the things that are generally consistent with male behavior, whether it's through a husband, a brother, etc. So I found in my own personal journey, I had to find myself. And I found myself by reading, I'm a Christian myself, I love the word, and that's where I found my own meaning, defining what power means to me. Also defining what influence means, because sometimes we have different types of power. One type is being able to influence, another type is being able to convene. So it was as a person, as an individual, finding ways in which I could influence decision-making in the home. It's easy, when you are out there talking about the work we do, to say as a couple we give, as a couple, we do ABC, we influence communities, we are philanthropists. But I must be honest with you, to get to sign the check, because to be real equal partners, I have to have the independence to make financial decisions. When it comes to giving, I learned how to use my ability, power, to also make financial decisions. A lot of couples are blessed in different ways, including financially, as we have been. But very few women have the ability to say, this is a particular cause that we must put money in and be able to write the check towards that particular cause. And I find myself to be very blessed to be able to do that. And I did that by taking a risk. You have to take a risk where you put your foot down and you say, this is what I believe in. I'm not sitting in the boardroom running the company and making decisions. but I'm an equal partner in the fact that I give my husband the space to do what he does, so that I may have the space to do what I do. So I also, the mindset I developed was not that he was the breadwinner and I was the user of the income. I said, because I give you ability to do what you do, it means that we are joint partners. And it's so important as women. And from day one, when we got built our business through the courts, taking the government to court because we wanted a business license. To me, I didn't care that I wasn't sitting with the lawyers and fighting through the cases and the discussions, etc. The fact that he was able to do that and come home and eat, and while I worked and looked after the children, meant I was equally in the courthouse, in the courtrooms with the lawyers. And then also, I have personal deep convictions that I will fight for. So I always say in my life, I'm not happy because happiness is not me, my husband, and God. It's me and God. That's it. So if he's unhappy, he needs to come on board and be happy with me, right?
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I could say a lot of stuff, but those are the basic principles.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. So Ms. Kasha wants to add something?
I resonate so much when she says, find your voice. Because 20 years ago, there was nothing called LGBT movement in Uganda. We had never heard of it. I was just an angry university student who got tired of saying, why am I being pinned on every wall in the university? Called wanted. Wanted is called, you put people's posters wanted in newspapers because they are thieves. But you don't put people's photos in newspapers simply because they love differently from you. So I got so angry, and I said, I need to find out why I'm being expelled from so many schools simply because I love letters to fellow girls. So I decided to find out. And here I am, a university student, and I didn't even know it was illegal to be gay. Can you imagine? Now imagine those who have not gone to school, those who are in villages, those who didn't even have the privilege I had. So I took opportunity to go to the internet cafes. I remember I went to this internet cafe at the university, and internet was just new. This is 1999 I'm talking about. Yeah. Very expensive. And I go and I enter and I tell the attendant, search for me homosexuality. I remember the faces on everyone's face in the internet cafe. Everyone turned and said, oh my God. Because this is something that was never talked about. This is something that we are never taught because sex education is never taught in schools. And if you're being taught, it's always, censored and all this. And here I am being expelled from school after school, and I was about to finish my university. And then I almost felt expulsion. But I said, I need to stand up and find out. So this is when I said, I need to do something about this. I took advantage of my privilege, of the fact that at home, no one even cared whether I loved how many girls. The only problem I remember my mom said was like, can't you just have one girl every holiday? That was the only problem, because every holiday I had, I was young, I was hot, and that was the only problem she had. But it was never even on the dining table discussed, even at my home. You see? Not even my mother, who didn't care about who I was, sat down and said, your sexuality is a problem in this country. So imagine how many people out there. We have so many suicides. In the last 2 months, in Uganda, in the last 2 months, we've had 4 deaths. 4. Murder. 4. Just 2 weeks ago, we had 16 arrests. from the government, because we call the police, we train the police on how to deal with issues of LGBT. But the same police we call to come and help is the same police that arrested my colleagues. So if we do not find our voices, like you said, God, it's you and God, not you. Well, for me, it's me, my woman, and my dog, and God. No, but
That's
seriously,
That's
seriously, yeah, but seriously, the issue is if we do not open dialogues, if we do not talk about these issues in our homes, because the kids who are hearing you going on national TV and talking ill about homosexuality, this could be your children. These could be your doctors. This could be your lawyers. How are they going to open up to you if they hear you as their mother, as their father, talking ill about this? How? Because you're seated on the dining table and you're talking ill about LGBT people. How is this son of yours going to open up to you? How is this transgender daughter or child of yours going to open up? I am in court. I don't know how many cases I have against this government. But let me tell you, when I started Bombastic Magazine, we got so many phone calls from parents who say they didn't even know that the word transgender existed. They're like, oh my God, my son could be that. My daughter could be that. And of course, the usual others called and said, how much do you pay to recruit? Those things, of course, always happen. But very many people responded because people are sharing their stories. So open up. If you do not have something nice to say, at least shut the fuck up. But do not say things in front because you do not know. People are killing themselves. Suicide is happening. These are people's lives we are talking about. If you cannot say anything nice about Kasha, just shut it.
Thank you so much, Kasha. So while you have the mic, I'm going to give you my second question. And it sort of links back to all you have said now, and even what I'm feeling in your voice. And I noticed that in almost all your videos, in your voice and in your eyes, there's a lot of pain from what you have seen, from losing your friend. I think David, that's his name. There's a lot of pain, but I know that definitely for you to still be on this journey, there has been some sort of healing and triumphs. Yes? So I want you to share a story of that triumph with us.
20 years ago when I started this movement, I'm among the only 2 remaining people in Uganda who started this movement 20 years ago. So it's lonely. I've lost people, death, suicide, or asylum. So it gets lonely. So there's a lot of pain, but it's that pain that actually keeps me moving every day because it gives me hope. 50 years ago, this year we celebrated 50 years of Stonewall when the LGBT movement around the world started 50 years ago. So knowing that in US 50 years ago, there are some people who sacrificed their lives to go on those streets and fight, and today they have same-sex marriage. Today they can adopt. So that keeps me going. It's that hope that makes me wake up every day and say that I'm going to go and talk to students to stop the bullying, go and to the court and fight all these, laws. It's that hope that keeps me moving every day. And knowing that even if today I do not live to see the liberation in Uganda, knowing that there are people like Gloria in this room, there are people that are going to continue the fight. For me, what keeps me moving is knowing that even if I never live to celebrate the liberation I'm fighting for, but knowing that I've motivated other people to stand up and say, this is who I am, and there's nothing that I can do about it because I did not create myself. And knowing that they can wake up every day and say, I'm proud to be gay. Because Whether we like it or not, some people are gay.
Thank you. Honorable Cecilia, I want to come to you. You've spoken about how historic and powerful it's been for you as a Maasai woman to now be in government.
Yes.
And I believe part of the problem we have with governments, especially in Africa, is that there's a lot of fear. And we instill this fear in the citizens not to ask questions, not to probe. And so the citizens are not informed of their rights and how to actually engage with government to get the change that they want. How do you think you are using your voice to change that perspective, especially in Kenya? Because you are talking for women and, and youth. So how are you using your voice to change that perspective and get more women to engage with the government so that the government is more participatory and inclusive?
Okay, thank you so much. You see, being in the government is another thing. And being outside the government is another thing. But all the same, the government is us and we are the government. The government is concerned about the education of the children in our country. And through education, so many changes are bound to occur or to happen. Through religion, we have religious leaders joining hands together and bringing up mentorship programs. This mentorship program embraces an alternative way of rites of passage. Like instead of undergoing FGM, we make another alternative ceremony like a graduation so that it can be a border between the young and the elderly. Therefore, girls graduate without the cut. They just graduate through an alternative way of rites of passage. The leaders also from the community, like chiefs, we work together. We also work with the county commissioners who also use the law to make sure that some duties or some roles are performed as per the law demands. Therefore, the government embraces such positive changes. We don't have war with them, but we rather join hands together and bring a successful nation through the way we persuade and the way we teach and confirm some virtues that are supposed to be done in the right way. Therefore, I think there's no problem in that.
Thank you so much, Honorable
Thank
Cecilia.
you.
So I want to link back that question to you, Ms. Fadimo. You were with the UN Women in Somalia. I think you was a first as well. And of course, having run for office and then dropped out, I want to believe that there are so many lessons learned, especially when it comes to rallying the women to support you. And I want you to speak to that. What are the lessons learned, having run for office, having been in the UN Women? What are the lessons that you have learned when it comes to rallying women in the room? Not just in Somalia, but even across Africa, because I feel like what we are trying to do here with AFWID is talk about how, as African women, we are one across borders. So what are the lessons that you have learned that you think would help to rally women around a woman when a woman stands up to speak?
Thank you. Before I actually come back to the lessons, I want to expand a bit more on the previous question that you had asked. In 2012, actually, it was declared in Somalia that we were going to have democratic elections. For more than 30 years, Somalia was in anarchy. Then we had transitional governments, which, as I said, are premised on the 4.5 clan-based power-sharing system. For the first time, Somalia was going to have democratic elections in 2012. And that's why you saw me contesting and standing up and saying that I'm going to run, because it is the citizens who will decide whom they want to lead them. Unfortunately, midway into that, and after I had declared my presidency, they reverted back to the 4.5 clan-based system, which, as I said, means the clan elders will actually select who gets to be in parliament and who gets to be in the Senate. And the president is selected, not elected, selected by these members of parliament and senators who have been selected through a clan-based system. And that is how you see the current president in office. So the 4.5 clan-based system is something that needs to be broken down, really, for people to get a sense of what we're talking about. In addition to the patriarchal society, you're actually fighting a clan system which shouldn't, as I said, exist, because it's very akin to the apartheid system, which was abolished. It's very akin to the Hindu caste system, and no country will ever progress as long as it is using an oppressive system to try and get justice. And so when I declared my candidacy, I actually inspired a lot of women, not just in Somalia, but I think also globally. And women did come around to try and support my candidacy. However, since it was not a democratic process, I had to pull out a last minute. What were the lessons learned? You know, for me, when I decided to go down that road, I had actually seriously thought about the pros and the cons. I didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a candidate in, of all places, Somalia. I thought very hard and long about it. And the lessons learned was that for a woman to embark down that road, she needs a support system. There must be a safety net for women who vie for political leadership. It's a messy, lonely road, and it's a road that needs others to walk with you. Otherwise, you're not going to make it at the end of that road. So, networks is very important. Having that support, moral, financial support is very important, because also women who aspire for political office, unfortunately, don't have financial resources. And it is because not just of the men, but also some women who really don't give them that full support. So a lesson learned is that you need actually financial resources, particularly in a country like Somalia, where 75% of probably your campaign finances would go into security, because they're hell-bent on killing you because they believe you don't deserve a chance at leadership. Because as far as they're concerned, the purpose that you have and role you have in society is either to be on a bed or in a kitchen, and nothing in between. So financial resources is very, very important. And then, the other lesson I learned is that you must love yourself and you must know yourself. You must be your greatest supporter. Because the day you step forward and you say, you know what? I am going to take a stab at this. I am going to run. Is the day 110 people and more will come forward and start telling stories about you, which will leave you flabbergasted and even wondering, was that me? Did I even do that? Because all of a sudden, you will be dehumanized. You will be completely humiliated. So one of the things I had to teach myself as a lesson was to take insults, to seek abuse, to seek humiliation, so that I could really strengthen my resolve and say, you know what, you don't define me, you don't get to tell me who I am or what I do, how I should do it. You don't have that power over me. And no one knows me but me. And I know who I am, and I'm not those things you're saying. And another lesson I really learned was that you must prepare your loved ones. I had to prepare my own children. Because my children were fighting on social media when I was being called a prostitute, I was being called an infidel. You know, all those things that assertive women get called, which by now we take with pride. Like when they told me I am a prostitute, I said Somalia will have one of the best and most qualified prostitutes leading it.
Yes, yes.
So, you must learn to withstand all those insults, all that humiliation, all that loneliness, because you will be left alone. And you must stand and you must say, this is a greater calling. And this is what people like me are meant to go through. And this is why I am chosen to do this. And I know what is best. So those are the lessons learned. And those people who are very close to you, and when we come from patriarchal societies, you know, there are males who actually believe they own you, like they own the cat, the car, and the furniture in the house. And when they realize one day that, no, they don't actually have that power over you, they will threaten you with leaving. And you must be able to be in a space where you say, well, I don't even see what your added value was to begin. Let me just gently open the door for you. Goodbye. See you. Yeah? And that happens because, as I said, you prepared yourself from the beginning. What remains in my life is the most important thing, which is my children. And my children stand there and they look at me and they say, thank God that we have a mother like you. And should you go, should somebody take you out, we will be more than happy to continue the journey. And as a mother, I think that is the greatest gift God has given me, but also the greatest gift that I can give to humanity, to mankind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I want to come to you, Pesha. I know you have something to add, so let me just pose my question to you as you answer the question. I'm paraphrasing here, something you said about Chinua Achebe, saying, if we dehumanize others, we cannot do that without taking from ourselves as well, right? She spoke about rights and being human, and I know from your story that you switched your major just so that you can actually have an understanding of the law to be able to fight, you know, this battle that you are fighting. I want you to share the lessons with us. What are the lessons that you have learned from those low moments? What have you learned and used to actually come back stronger?
I've actually just switched again. Now I'm a pig farmer.
Oh, interesting.
From accountant to human rights, now I'm a pig farmer. But for me, the lesson learned is perseverance. Because had I given up, I don't think that the world would even know the plight of the LGBT movement that is happening in Uganda. Because, as I told you 12 years ago, I asserted and reclaimed my space in the women's movement in Uganda. No one wanted to sit with me even during lunchtime because they just couldn't believe there was a lesbian in their presence. But I said I'll eat alone, day, night, evening, I didn't care. I said I'll just skip coming, breakfast, lunch, every time break, because I said I'm a woman and this is my space. And I stayed there. But I want to tell you that without the women's movement, without the feminist movement, the LGBT community in Uganda would not really exist. Because it's that movement, it's those women, some of them in this space, that picked me up when I began getting fed up of myself. It's those women that opened their doors to me and said, you're carrying a big burden, but you're not giving up. It's those women that helped me learn how to write proposals to make sure that I opened the first office for my community, to make sure that we opened the LGBT clinic, because my colleagues could not access proper medication because of the discrimination. It's the women, many of you in this room, that made me say, I'm not going to give up. So for me, perseverance is one lesson I've learned. Because had I given up 20 years ago, I was just a child, I was a university student. I didn't even know what LGBT movement meant. Things of coming out. These are westernized words. Closets. I'd never heard of a closet because I'd lived openly of who I was, but now here I am, I hear closets. I'm like, what is even that? These are words that we had never heard of. Then you hear issues of, these words of Americans, recruitment, promotion. I'm like, what am I promoting? But because of perseverance, I said, I'm going to teach myself. I finished my degree from accounting. I said, I need to understand the Constitution. Here I am, a university student, but I'd never even seen the Constitution copy of Uganda. But I said, if I'm to change all this, I need to go and educate myself. And now, I think I know everything by fingertips. Now I've changed, now I'm a pig farmer. No, but I'm just telling you, it's because I never gave up. It's not easy, it's lonely, as you've said. It's lonely out there. And for me, what keeps me going is the anger, because I'm tired. I'm tired of losing people, of seeing kids being bullied simply there. I'm just tired. But it is that anger that keeps me waking up every day and saying, I'm going to knock on this office. And if it's a women's organization, I'm going to sit there. I don't care whether they get tired of me or what, and I'll have their free lunch, but it's my space, and I'll sit there until they listen to me. So for me, it is because of the women, many of you here, that have kept me going, and I'm not going to give up until my last breath, because as I said, I do not want to see other generations go through what I'm going through, because I do not want to regret that I didn't do anything. I do not want to bury my head in the sand, yet I have a voice. Why not use it? So for me, it is the persistence and perseverance, but the thing is, this only is the connections we have. All of us here, somehow, we are here because of the connections we all have here. I've just been reading about her. Internet, YouTube, what? Here I am seated next to her. Why? Because of Zanele Mbeki. So all of us should use these networks. Each and all of us here need each other.